You're listening to
Sticky Note Conversations with Erika Washington. Way below acceptable. Way below acceptable.
On this week's episode,
you don't have time to sit and meditate.
Right. And that has always been, I think, our position. But I do think that that is deeply flawed. And we are seeing what happens when you are not prepared for long-term creation of sustainable power.
Hey there, Sticky Note listeners. It's your host, Erika Washington. And today's episode brings back a favorite guest, my friend Dawn Blaigrove, the executive director of Emancipate NC in North Carolina and a law school graduate. After the Supreme Court's decision that further cut into and weakened Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, I knew she was who I needed to talk to and who we needed to hear from. And as we began the conversation, she asked me how I was. And I had a difficult time articulating my current state. My emotions are sometimes wildly all over the place. One moment, I feel like we still have an opportunity to change course. In other moments, I feel like we are spiraling rapidly into Dante's Inferno. But then I remember our ancestors. They pushed through worse, so much worse, or we wouldn't be here. Our conversation jumps right into it. So as always, I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as we did.
One of the things that I think we have got to take accountability for is asking ourselves, how do we keep ending up back at this place where our rights and the things the wins that we think we have turn out not to be wins, or turn out not to be permanent, right? What is it that we can do differently to ensure that when we start winning again, there is permanency around those wins, and that we are winning things that cannot be arbitrarily taken from us, right?
Does that mean we need to think clearer on how to word things properly in policy?
No,
because
I don't.
No? Okay.
Nope, I don't. I'm going to tell you what, I don't. And I want to be very clear. No, absolutely not. Because I think what we need to be doing is thinking about ways that we can inoculate ourselves from the whims of policymakers. And I think the only way that we can actually do that is very up close on a personal level, right? And building power locally and in our municipalities, right? I think that we've got to play a national game, but we've also got to start playing a strategic game. I was talking to a man yesterday who told me that maybe the way that we do this, instead of trying to do it from the top down like we've always done, maybe we do it from the bottom up. If we've got enough municipalities where we've got enough rural counties where Black people make up the majority of the voters, of the eligible voters, maybe our plan is to both work on a national level, but simultaneously work on creating and building our own governments, right? Our own local governments, so that when goes left upstairs, we can protect the house, right? I might not be able to protect everybody, but I can if I've got a city council that is full of Black folks who are committed to ensuring that Black people have access to the ballot, then that looks different than if I got to fight the white people on a local level and on a national level, right? It looks different. We have different strategy. We have different leveraging points. I just think that we've got to stop putting ourselves in a position where we are constantly begging them to allow us to be free and start creating conditions where we are building our own freedom.
What does that look like?
I think that looks like taking over local governments, right? Where we are negotiating with power companies to ensure that folks ain't getting their power cut off just because SNAP benefits decide they're going to dry up. Or where it looks like we want to make sure that our children, we have control of our local school boards so that even when federal governments decide that we shouldn't teach Black history or have books that talk about the LGBT community and their experience, that our local school board is still protecting the rights of our children and our folks. I think it looks like, honestly, it looks like segregation to a certain extent.
You know, the thing that comes to my mind is sovereign.
Yes.
Like a sovereign nation, an annexation.
Yep.
Which is not a new conversation. People have brought it up in the past, and they've always been those folks who've had like the tinfoil on their head, sort of say, oh, I need to live off the grid, and, we need to be away from.
Yeah. I'm not saying live off the grid. I think you can. That is an option. Somebody needs to be doing it. But I do think that we can live within the grid. We just make the grid work for us in ways that we haven't really been encouraged or has not been a part of our larger strategic game plan. We focus so much on voting inside of their systems, right? And electing people that are electable on a national or statewide level, as opposed to cultivating our own candidates, cultivating our own leaders who have marching orders from us, right? That are beholden to us and care about the well-being of Black folks and are protecting those folks who are not necessarily part of the mainstream narratives, right? But if we have systems in place that to protect us, where we are growing our own food and supporting local farmers, Black farmers, and making sure that they are able to stay afloat, right? We are allocating county resources to folks that are going to be fair, right, and equitable with the distribution and the use of those resources, then we don't have to worry about when they cut SNAP off, because then we already have Black folks and Black farmers in our community that are growing food that can fill in that gap until the government comes back to its senses, which it always does for the most part, right? When it restabilizes. But until then, we've got to have things in order that say, even if they go all the way crazy, we gonna be okay, right? And I think we can do that by taking over these local municipalities quietly, taking over local municipalities and government in places where we have the political power to do so. And there's a lot of them.
Yeah, and I've heard, of some various places in the South. I want to say maybe Georgia, maybe Texas, where there are folks who are trying to create spaces, community spaces that are centered on the Black population, or even trying to get more Black folks to move there and be a part of it. And so what I'm hearing from you, besides sounding like a sovereign space, but also a co-op space.
Exactly.
And that's had me thinking a lot about recently my mentor, Ruby Duncan, passed away. And one of the things that we had talked about on numerous times was her fight for welfare rights for poor mothers in the 1960s and 70s. And Nevada was the last state to get food stamps, to be a part of the federal food stamp program, because the governor at the time said that there weren't any hungry children in Nevada and there weren't any hungry people in Nevada. So we didn't need it, is what he said, right?
Right.
Ain't it, girl? And so, they pushed and pushed and pushed and like, no, this is something we need. Now, in the meantime, folks were making it do however they made it do with each other. But then once they got it, one thing Miss Ruby said is that years later is that folks, they start to get a little lazy. They start to get tired, and it's like, well, we won this, or we finished this battle and it was hard. And people just sort of stop, right?
Yep.
And it's such a constant, and I get it because it is a constant fight for democracy. It's a constant fight for freedom. And it doesn't feel like that's the life that we should be living, that we should have to live, that we always have to remind people of our humanity and that people deserve basic rights such as food and shelter and clean water and all of that. But it is. And so thinking about that at this moment, you know, especially with her recently passing and her being 93, I know towards the end, she was pissed, honestly, you know, at seeing what she had fought for and how things were like being pulled apart from the things that it didn't even last a whole entire generation. Right. And so, you know, she was mad and she was frustrated and she was tired and she was like, I'm gonna need you to find some money so y'all can keep doing this.
Right.
But I'm so tired. And she was just distraught with just what she was seeing. And so thinking about the now, thinking about Louisiana, thinking about like where we are in this moment, how we focus and come together in some sort of way.
Yeah. No, I hear you. But they keep us running in these circles, right? They keep us chasing the things that are temporary, right? Whether we realize it or not. And that constant chasing of the goals and the wins that they tell us matter results in us never spending time thinking about how we build the future, the sustainable future that we deserve and that we want, right? We've got to create some space. We have to have time and space. And I know that it feels like because there's always something to fight against, right? There's always
a fire to put out. So you don't have time to sit and meditate.
Right. And that has always been, I think, our position. But I do think that is deeply flawed. And we are seeing what happens when you are not prepared for long-term creation of sustainable power. We are constantly looking for wins and we don't create space for succession planning, for long-term planning, for 10-year planning, because that's what we're fighting, right? Right now, we are at a place where the damn conservatives didn't get us here overnight. It took them 50 years to get here. And they've been working their plan for 50 years while also doing all the other things, right? We get so focused on survival. They keep us so focused on survival that we can't plan. We can't think ahead, right? And we have always thought that I think we have organized in a way that reflected that the best use of the brightest and the best that we have is staying alive. When I think we have to create space where we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We have got to value the plan, right? That means all of us cannot be making sure that everybody can eat today. Some of us have to make sure that our children don't have to beg for food tomorrow. And that is the part of, I think, our organizing that we just haven't prioritized, right? Which I think we have to. And what we're learning is that we don't have the room not to prioritize strategic long-term planning. We don't. Because this is what happens when we don't do it. We get caught like this where we're set back to the beginning. Right? Because what we're going to talk about today is this Voting Rights Act, which it took us 70, 80 years to get from the end of Reconstruction, right? And now here we are right back at the same damn place. So it is not just enough to win the wins. We also have to have our best creative minds thinking about how we hold on to these wins, how we entrench these wins so deeply that they cannot be taken from us. And I think that's the part that we haven't done well. And that is because we have been so focused on surviving, right? And we have prioritized survival. But I think at this moment, what we are learning is that surviving can't be enough. And we have also, while it feels counterintuitive, we have also got to prioritize longevity, which I don't think we've done.
Well, knowing that surviving is not enough, how do we get to that place where we can think further ahead? Because the first thing that comes to my mind, and the way I always set the scenario up for folks, is thinking about poverty. As most people know, poverty is it's very expensive to be poor.
Honey, hush your mouth.
And so when you don't have enough, it costs more just to make ends meet. And when you think about folks that are scraping by on less than a living wage, less than a minimum wage sometime, and piecing things together, and then say they get their tax refund, and then folks will call that hood rich or what have you for a minute, and folks got a couple $1,000s in their pocket, more money than they have at any given time at one time. And then they have this money, and then they go out and, and I'm using air quotes, blow it because they buy things that will satisfy them, that, gets their...
give them some happiness in that moment.
Right, get that serotonin going, right?
Yeah,
that new bag or what have you. Yeah, and they'll go out and they'll, have an expensive dinner or go on a trip or what have you, and people will be like, people aren't saving their money right, people aren't doing this and people aren't doing that. And there's a lot of armchair quarterbacking to what other people should be doing with their finances. But in the end, they know that money's not going to last. And at that moment, it feels nice to have that moment where you can buy your kids whatever it is that you want to be able to get them, whatever they ask for. And then you're right back where you started, trying to pay your light bill and trying to keep the repo man off your car or whatever, what have you. And you just keep in that same cycle. And it's hard to plan and say, well, I'm going to put all this money away in a savings account or a CD or whatever. And that's 18 months and it's going to grow or what have you, because you can't think even that far ahead, because it's like, but no, I'm going to need it right now. If you're telling me I can't take it out for 18 months, that's going to scare the living crap out of me, because I don't know what's going to happen next month. I don't know if I'm going to get my child support check. I don't know if my food stamps might get cut off. I don't know what might happen. And so you can't plan ahead. And so I feel as a whole, as a community, that's where we're at. We're in this cycle of, we get a little bit, we get excited, we celebrate, we slow down and enjoy this moment, knowing it's not going to last. We do know it's not going to last. And then when we get into it, and here we are again, and everything is very reactionary, and then we're afraid. And so then we got to figure out how we come together. But it's just a cycle. And it's like, do we stop voting for Democrats?
Girl, I don't know. But let me go back to the economic piece of this, because here's the other thing that I think we always talk about us like all of us are in this dire situation. And the truth of the matter is, it's a lot of us that aren't. And those of us that aren't like to go sit on the beach at a conference and talk about how the poor people ain't doing what they're supposed to be doing. We need to start asking, are we doing? And when I say we, I mean that very large Black middle class that does exist. Are we doing what we need to be doing to make sure that all of us can survive, that all of us can have what we need? Because here's the thing. Sacrifices are going to have to be made. And it can't just be poor people that make those sacrifices, right? Those of us who have are going to have to be willing to sacrifice for the greater good as well, right? And if we are willing to do that, then there's a lot less of this. Like, for example, I make it my business. I think every Black person with means in America, if we all adopted 3 people that whenever they call, whatever they need, If we can, we take care of them, right? I got 3 people in my life that if you call me, you can't get medicine, you ain't got the $35 for medicine, I'm a cash app it to you. No questions asked. You struggling to keep your business open and you need $100 or you need $600 to make your rent this month, I'm gonna help you do that, right? If all of us who can do that, what it does is creates space in the collective chest of poor Black folks, right? Working class Black folks. It gives them that space to breathe that so many of us don't have. And when you have that space to breathe, then you can make those kinds of long-term decisions because you're not worried about the fact that if your light bill is an extra $800, if your gas bill is an extra $40, it's going to throw everything off and you're going to need to go back and get that $800 or $1,000 that you put into that CD. If we create our own security blankets, our own security nets for our own people, those of us who can do, and we do that in a way from the top down, then you don't have the situations where I can't buy my baby, I can't ever get my child the shoes that he wants. And that doesn't mean that your baby I'm not talking about to excess, right? In order for us to have collective strength, collective wealth, collective solidarity and community, it is going to require sacrifice from all of us. So that might mean in order to support a small Black business so it doesn't go under, in order to make sure that my friend has the diabetes medicine that he needs, even when he can't afford it, right? I got to go on 1 cruise this year instead of 2. Then I need to be willing to make that sacrifice. And that is where we are as a people, because the government isn't going to save us. We are going to have to invest and save one another. And we can do that. We have the economic strength. We have made enough economic strides that there are enough of us that if we all did what we could for someone who can't do it for themselves, then all of us breathe a little easier. Then all of us are in a position to make less dire decisions, right? We can think long term. We can think past the moment. But again, that is something that is going to take a major paradigm shift for us as Black folks out of white supremacist colonialist thinking around economy, around what it means to be wealthy, around what it means to secure the bag, to a more collective understanding that we live or die together, that we rise or fall together, that if all of us eat, if I can eat, everybody can eat. And if everybody can eat and nobody's starving, then I don't have to worry about you coming into my house and taking what I have. Right? Like, I think we've got to be very, very, very intentional about reconfiguring our, and when I say our, I mean Black folks, reconfiguring our alignment and our responsibility and our accountability to each other. Because if we don't know anything else, what we know right now is that America is not going to save us. It's not. Even the good white people, right? If we are not willing to make the sacrifices to ensure the longevity of our successes for ourselves, we stuck.
We have to remove the fissures, too, of folks saying that Black people don't help each other or that Black people don't support each other. And I think some of it are bots online.
Yeah,
I think there are certainly just interlopers in there just making things up and people going along with it. Because I've told people on multiple occasions, I was like, I don't experience that on any regular basis. And
Nor
it's not
do
who
I.
I am.
Exactly.
It's not who I am. It's not who my organization is. It's not how we have moved in all this time. And I said, I don't believe it. I believe there are individuals who don't support other individuals, or there are people who are just who they are.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
there
There's a
are,
community
and that
full
is
of
true.
them. Everybody
That's
got
true.
one.
And that
And
is a
so,
human
but
condition, not a Black condition, right?
right. And so if this mindset of one needing to be in this proximity of whiteness for approval, and this other space of wanting to downgrade whenever possible and say what we don't have or what we can't do or what we ain't never done or how this ain't never worked, history has proven that to not be true, because obviously we wouldn't have had the Voting Rights Act in the first place. We wouldn't have a lot of the women's rights comes from that as well. And so I don't think it's true, but I do think it is a sore that sits on the community's backside in a way that keeps us from when you make plans like this, when you say something like each one help three, it sounds like an easy enough plan, because you go back to the thoughts and ideas of being a co-op, of being an actual community, of actually trading what you need within, removing capitalism from our mindset of like, this is the only way to be successful, is to have the biggest of everything and not just having enough to go around and everyone feeling satisfied. It's about getting full, not overindulgent. And part of that, I think, is teaching our children that. And
huge part of it is that, because I think we also have to realize that there are some of us who are so sick with white supremacy that all of us ain't gonna make it to the promised land. And that's just the bottom line. All of us don't believe in the same promised land, right? All of us don't see the promised land the way we want to see it. And, we got to take those folks that's ready to go, right? We got to take the people that's ready to go and build some shit. But I can't keep waiting and trying to convince everybody. It's too late. If you don't see the problem, if you don't see the plan, if you don't see that collectively this is where we're going, I pray that you will get here, but we moving on without you. I can't spend no more time trying to convince you. You understand what I mean? We passed that point. We got to move. And if we don't move with intention around creating these kinds of safe spaces for ourselves, creating these kinds of cooperative type environments where we are doing bartering instead of relying on cash or whatever the case may be to sustain ourselves, we don't survive this. Like, that's just the bottom line. We don't survive this unless we really do some radical rethinking about how feasible American capitalism is for the collective.
I guess the question then would be, how do we protect it? Because I think about Black Wall Street, think about Tulsa, Oklahoma, and different areas.
And that is part of all of it. We've got to create, and it's not just enough to build economic wealth. We have got to create all pillars of a society. And we have got to infuse into our co-ops all of the pillars that are needed to create a sustainable society. Emancipate NC has been working on this campaign called With, Without, and Against. With the government, without the government, and against the government. I think Black folks have done a really good job of building systems that fight the government against the government. We have done incredibly good job of building systems where we work with the government, right? What we have failed to do is build those systems that sustain us without the government, right? And as part of that campaign, we sat down and thought and talked amongst ourselves and came up with the pillars that we needed to survive without the government. We need education. We need safety. We need health. We need food. We need security. We need shelter, right? And in order to create these self-sustaining systems, these systems that are are inoculated against the whims of white supremacy, we have to do all of those things. We have to be prepared to protect whatever it is that we build. We have got to be prepared to feed the people in the communities that we build. We have got to be prepared to educate the children and the adults in the communities that we build. We have got to be prepared to buy land and have a place to be, right? We've got to be prepared and think strategically about who has the skill sets that we need, who can build houses, who does know how to write curriculums. Listen, Black women are the most educated people in this country, right? We got all the master's tools. We already have them. We have everything we need to take care and sustain ourselves. The only thing that we don't have is the will and the imagination to bring it to fruition. We've got everything we need. We got engineers, we got doctors, we got lawyers, we got farmers, we got teachers. We've got everything that we need. We have the only thing that we don't have is the desire to take those skills and use them for the greater good and sustainability of Black folks.
Does that require a leader, an individual?
No, it doesn't. I think what it does require, though, is a plan, right? It requires a small group of folks with the skill set to develop the plan, to develop what this looks like, put it into a digestible strategy that can be deployed to all four corners of America and to the Black diaspora, right? What we do not need is centralized power, right? What we need is diffused power, right? So no, we don't need one leader. We need a group of people who say, this is the strategy, right? Now that is going to be a very small group of people that are going to come up with that strategy, right? And then we're going to say, this is the strategy that we think will work. We all know, Erika, you and I know each other through the Black Freedom Collective, right? Which was a collective of Black-led organizations across the country. We have the interconnective tissue, right? What we're talking about, do we need a leader? No. Do we need a leader? Do we need a leader to make the Underground Railroad work? No. There are people that white folks have told us were the leaders, right? But what we know for sure is that that works because of all of the people, right? We give Dr. King credit for the civil rights movement, right? But the reality is that it was always the people that did that. That it was always people, local people, people on the ground who responded to the material needs of the people in their communities. And then Dr. King came in and amplified the work that was already being done, right?
So because they felt we needed a leader, right? And so I think my question is that we could create this plan. This plan could be created the same way civil rights movement was created by multiple people putting a plan together. But then they realized, or they thought, oh, well, we need a spokesperson. We need a leader. We need somebody for people to look up to and follow. And that seems to be the formula that that happens with all these different social movements, whether it was Cesar Chavez or whomever else. So wondering, though, how do we get away from folks feeling well, how do I know? Like the naysayers about the plan. Obviously, you're going to have people get on the bus and other folks who don't. But the folks who feel like they need that charismatic Obama, they need somebody to follow along in order to believe that it's actually possible to work.
And I think we can have people who who play that role, right? Like you and I, for example, are folks who our ministry is communication, right? We gonna talk to the people in a way that the people understand. Yeah, we have people who should do that, but what we need to avoid, I think, is this idea that there is one person that will save us, right? And I think that even those of us who end up out front doing the talking or who are drafting the long strategic plan, we have got to be very careful to push back against thinking or believing that we are bigger than the people. We are never bigger than the people. And when you start thinking that the people are not the ones that have what is needed to survive this moment, that's when we start losing, right? And that is a traditional Eurocentric approach to organizing, to survival, to revolution. We don't need that, right? It's always the people. It's got to be the people. So while we are doing this building, we also are going to have to necessarily be doing some real strong political education and some decolonizing about the way that we survive and the way that survival looks for us. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, it makes perfect sense to me. Like, it makes me ready to book a trip with you and go sit somewhere and brainstorm for 2 weeks and come back with
a
plan. Come back with a whole plan with graphics and everything.
And everything. And baby, then what we have to do is say, okay, this is what we got. Now, how are our people learning? How are our children learning? How are they connecting? Then we gonna have to give it to them children on the TikToks and the Instagrams and let them make it palatable to everyone, to their people, right? Our children have created an underground railroad. We just don't know how to use it, right? We just don't know how to use it.
That is very true because they don't even really communicate with their phones anymore as far as like texting and making phone calls. Like everything is DMs here and what have you. Like they've got a whole way.
That's a whole different thing, but we got to get out these children's way and let them lead, let them show us. Mm-hmm. We got to get out their way. Now, we might need to help them build that strategy, right? The long-term strategy. But once we got it in place, and they should be at the table when we're building that because they are going to have ideas and approaches that we don't have because it is natural to lean back on what you know, even in the face of what you know not having worked, like where we are right now, right?
Yeah.
What we know and what we've done, there are some things about it that have been successful, but there is a whole bunch about it that we need to leave at the wayside.
That makes me think that we need to, like you said, sit at the table with them, but also think about it from the point of view, like as I think we are both empty nesters. You know, we have our children are tax-paying voters at this point,
right,
and so they have thoughts and they have dreams and they have realities that aren't the same as ours. And also when it comes time to becoming a grandparent, if that is to ever happen for me, that I know that I will be a different type of parent as a grandparent than I was as a parent. You know, people may always tease how, you know, grandparents are so much softer on the kids and like a whole different person. But also, you know, and there's a lot of reason for that. One, it's not my full responsibility. But two, you've had time in hindsight to look back and be like,
I've learned. Right.
Maybe I don't have to be that way, right?
Right.
So it's the
You've
same
learned
thing.
So many lessons, right? You know what matters and what, as we get to the point in our lives where we have fewer summers behind us than in front of us, you understand what's more important. And what's not important is whether or not she's saying yes, ma'am, and no, sir, and that she understands economic wealth, or that she understands that he or she is worthy. Period. Right? Hard stop. Like we know we have different things that we bring to the table with the perspective of age and time, right? But at the same time, we cannot assume that the ingenuity that we had as young people has no place and no value as we build right now. Because I think we truly believe, we believe that I don't understand these kids. I don't understand this. I don't understand. Maybe it ain't for you to understand, Mama. But that don't mean it don't got value, right? That don't mean that we shouldn't be using it. That doesn't mean that it's not something that we should incorporate into whatever our next 10-year plan is, right? Or 20 or 50-year plan is. So, yeah, I feel like I've been talking a lot. I'm going to stop. Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts right in this moment.
And this is one of the reasons why I was like, girl, besides the fact I will have to say I have to give a shout out that Will, who is my music producer and editor on this podcast, is a big fan of yours and loved the first episode, as did many other people, but specifically him. And he's like, when you gonna talk to Dawn again? When you gonna talk to Dawn again? Like, I like her. She made me want to actually believe and I could do something. I said, girl, she can, because we can. And
we can.
But there is something about that passion, but also because you've seen so much, right? You've seen so much. You're in the thick of it. But also, I think you and I might be in sort of the same position at this point of having been in it. And I'll tell people, like, when I first started doing social justice work, movement work, what have you, that I was naive. I did think like, oh, okay, well, we just need to organize people and we just need to talk to them and we just need to, we tell our stories and, we're going to go and lobby. We're going to go and we can change things because this policy makes sense. This action makes sense. Like it couldn't be that hard, right? We can make this happen. And we just got to get people to vote, right? Black people, they vote. They understand the meaning behind us getting out and voting. And then over time and over cycles, you realize that the hurdles that are the real hurdles aren't the hurdles that you see every day. And sometimes it's the people who say they're on the same side as you. And you realize we don't all have the same agenda and we don't all believe that progress looks the same. And they will put you out the way for their own progress over yours.
It takes time to realize that for some people, even people who claim they are fighting for the liberation of Black people, because they have turned it into an economic venture into their life, right? Because their financial freedom is predicated on the backs of Black pain and misery, that all the people that's doing this work, many of the people that are doing this work are vested in never seeing us win. Because if not,
put them out of a job.
They put themselves out of a job. And that's what something that it didn't occur to me until, recently, not recently, but relatively recently. So I have started saying out loud whenever I'm on panels and things, look here, my goal is to put myself out of a job. There is a problem if you think that in the fight for Black liberation, for Black autonomy, for Black freedom, I should also be giving you a 401k. Because, baby, if you doing this work with all your heart, you ain't retiring from this work. That's not your goal, right? Now, I'm not saying that you should have those things, but I am saying that we have to have a serious shift about the way are there people who claim to be fighting for liberation and Black freedom and Black autonomy? Do they really want it? Do they have a vested interest in seeing it? You understand what I'm saying? And the answer that I have come up with as of late is a lot of folks do not. A lot of folks have a vested interest in seeing, in keeping, and getting Black people to the polls, right? Getting us registered to vote, but never doing the work to build real political power inside of each human being, right? They want us to show up when they want us to show up, and the rest of the time you should just be quiet and sit down somewhere, right? These are the things and the people as we move forward that we have got to use. We have got to use scalpel-like precision to determine who is trustworthy with the future of Black folks, right? Everybody shouldn't have a seat at that table. Because just like during slavery, it was always somebody that was going to tell the master where we was going. We got a lot of those folks. And now they've gotten smarter and cloaked themselves in liberation and freedom spaces and say all the right things, but don't move in ways that are honest and true to Black liberation. We got to be honest about that too.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of celebrity that has come with this work.
A little bit, right.
And so there are people who are now social media famous or movement famous because of the work and because they speak eloquently and they can get on these different stages and or become a talking head on a news program that then it becomes just like this sort of starstruck, what have you, and not being used to then raise a lot of money off of that so that money then trickles into the actual
that is not being
Black
shared,
economic
right?
Yeah, it's not being shared, and the celebrity is not being shared because then there are certain folks who end up in these rooms and then all that money seems to stay in these little pooled areas that a lot of us never see. And then you have celebrities who are not in this work who get involved because they may feel some passion about it. They might, oh, wow, I really want to help. And then they get hooked up with some folks. And then that money is also never seen because they don't necessarily know who the folks who are really doing the work versus the people. Right. And they just talking to whoever is the loudest or whoever has the most shine at that moment.
Or whoever white folks have picked, whoever white folks have adorned with being our leaders.
Mm. Like the Target boycott.
What? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. And so that, I think, is, there's so many layers to this. But again, anything that is not centering collective liberation, right, is problematic, right? I spent last weekend in Atlanta with this incredible group of Black women that are called the Black Southern Women's Collaborative that is trying to build Black power through the lens of Black women, right? Because so often it is us that is in the forefront or the background of so many of the accomplishments that we make as a people, right? But we're told, though, that it is somebody else that we're supposed to be thanking for those accomplishments and for those achievements. Ain't nobody organizing like Black women. And we need to invest in Black women so that Black women can do this work, right? These women have an incredible long-term strategy, right? For meeting this moment that we are in. They just can't get no money, right? Because they not the ones that are chosen by the white folks. They not the people who have been adorned as our leaders, right? And I'm going to call her name. Phyllis Hill is the kind of like the brainchild behind this collective. I mean, we travel all over this country talking to people, and I didn't know her before I came in contact with her here. And she is literally one of the most incredible and impressive organizing minds that I've ever met, right?
I want to meet her.
You will. You will. I'm going to ask her to come on your show. She has this incredibly clear vision for Black folks and for Black liberation and for centering the needs of Black people and how we survive not only this moment, but how we build past this moment to create that kind of collective, sustainable power. You should have her on the show. You should. Absolutely. And I'll make that happen. And that is, again, that right there, what we just did right there, that's it. That's winning. That's how we build this sustainability, right? Is that we decide who our leaders are going to be. We decide who is speaking for us. We decide who we listen to and who we don't listen to. And we don't let white folks tell us, anoint leaders for us. We don't let them tell us who we should listen to and who is worthy of our time and who is not worthy of our time based on who they give their money to, right? We have to fund our own liberation. That's the other thing. And we got it. We can do that, right? We are more than capable. You know, folks love saying Black people don't give. You know what? That's a lie. Black people give to churches more than anybody else on, honey. These churches, these Black churches, how many of us have been to a church where, or have heard of a church where some pastor is having a pastor's appreciation and they got lines where people giving $1,000, $500? Now, can you imagine? Can you imagine if we put those same types of resources, gave that freely to people who are building Black power? What we could do if we was really committed to funding our own liberation, the way we think we can buy our way to heaven, if we could buy our way to freedom.
Ooh.
You know, that's what I'm talking about. And those are the conversations that we have got to start having. We have to. Oh, Jesus. I'm tired.
Girl, I'm writing that down because that's a whole note right there. As an aside, what I think I love so much about this conversation, because we also work well when we're multitasking. And if I wasn't sitting in this hotel room, you know, in Seattle or at a conference, that I would probably be at home cooking or something else or whatever it is, that the things that keep me sane.
Right.
And you are painting. You are actively painting, actively creating as you are dropping knowledge.
Because it is so necessary that we give ourselves space to think and to be, right? You know, I hate them damn T-shirts, I ain't my ancestors. I hate that shit. Let me tell you something. No, we ain't our ancestors.
Wait. So people know what you're talking about. You're talking about those T-shirts that say, I ain't my ancestors.
You can catch these hands or whatever. Let me be clear. Our ancestors was throwing hands in their own ways, surviving, cooking, cleaning, and building the liberation that you got right now. They was doing all that shit at the same time. If we were our ancestors, we wouldn't be here. Right?
Yeah.
But we allow proximity to white folks to make us soft and comfortable. We have always done multiple things at the same time. Right? We have always used, girl, yeah. So painting for me is liberating, right? It is liberating, and it is also a way for me to allow my brain to be free. It opens up a part of my brain that I don't always use when I'm working, when I'm actually talking about the liberation and the freedom of Black folks. That is incongruent with us having the imagination to dream bigger than our circumstances. So I believe in working. You know, I'm gonna be on the call painting now. I will do that. I will in a heartbeat.
I want to ask you about the Voting Rights Act, the recent decision that came down from the Supreme Court in regards to Louisiana versus, is it Calais? I don't know how you pronounce it.
It is Calisai. Yeah, Calisai. Like Marseille. Calisai.
Okay.
Like Marseille.
Calisai.
Right. Okay.
So in regards to the Supreme Court in Louisiana versus Calisai, which weakened Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, and this isn't new, like also bringing back, they were already gutting it back in like 2015.
2018, right. They've been working on, again, they've been working on long-term strategy, yes.
How do you think that we got here?
I think that we did not listen to the canary in the coal mine, right? I think there have been lots of people who have been saying, y'all, this ain't good, right? This is where we going right now. This don't look good. And I think we have been placating one another and trying to act like this isn't what it is. Trying to act like we are not looking at the demise of the American empire when we are, and trying to look like white folks ain't ready to take us back to Jim Crow when that's where we are going. I watched, I don't know, not Gwen Eiffel, Cheryl Lynn Eiffel was on the Daily Show yesterday. If you missed it, I strongly encourage anyone who is listening to find it on YouTube and watch it. In 20 minutes, she gives us such a solid overview of how we got here and laid out some real cold, hard facts about how or if it's possible for us, or how long it will take for us to overcome the damage of this moment. Because the damage of this moment cannot be understated. This is not a minor setback. This is huge. This is essentially disenfranchising Black people and Black power. What it does is essentially says that in order for a district to be deemed unconstitutionally gerrymandered, you have to be able to show that there was that the intent of the map as it was drawn was to exclude and prevent Black people from getting elected, or minorities, or who was being targeted, right? That is almost impossible to do. We have gone back to, for all intents and purposes, counting the number of jelly beans in a jar to get to cast a ballot, right? Just on a much, much larger scale. The vast majority of Black representation in the United States Congress comes from Louisiana. And the reason that they got there was because previous Supreme Courts have understood that there were systemic policies used to exclude Black people throughout the history of this country from access to political representation. And so in order to correct the wrong that was done to us, we had to have the opportunity to be able to create districts that ensured that Black folks would be, or at least would have the opportunity to be fully represented, right? Without that, what the gutting of Section 5 does is take that away. The implications of that are huge. Because what does it mean? In this in the political system that we have, our lawmakers and our legislators and our elected officials respond to people and constituencies that have the power to unseat them, right? That have the power to take away their power. If Black people don't have the power to take away any elected official's power to legislate, that means that when we call those offices to demand things, they don't have any incentive to respond to our demands. When we call them and say, our children are drinking dirty water, there's no incentive to respond because our voting power has been so diluted that even by organizing, we cannot upset the seat of power that they hold. That is what this actually means. It means that the Supreme Court has essentially silenced Black and minority communities all over this country have made us less than silenced us, have made us invisible, have made us non-fighters.
It makes our problems obsolete.
Makes our problems obsolete. And that is why, going full circle back to the start of this conversation, it is so imperative that we put ourselves in positions of power locally and that we create pockets of political power so that we can counteract the lack of political power that we are going to have.
What does that mean for this upcoming midterm?
What that means is everybody needs to vote. First of all, what it means in real time is that for many of us in many states, particularly in the South, which is where most Black people live, we may not even see midterms. Because what the Supreme Court has done is open up the opportunity for states to redraw districts. The redrawing of those districts will take time and will necessarily, in many places, delay those 2026 elections. I would offer with the goal of disrupting them to the point that they become a non-issue. So what we are going to have to do is not only show up in the 2026 midterm elections, but we are going to need to show up and vote for folks who are committed to ensuring that Black people don't lose full political power, that our issues and that our power bases do not become, what was the word that you said? Irrelevant, right? We got to vote, and we got to put these folks on the record. We got to say, look, you can't have my vote unless you understand that democracy is an American institution that should not be excluded from Black folks or LGBTQ communities or, whomever those folks in positions of power decide should not have a political voice. That's number one. Once we get some folks elected into Congress to have a backbone, then we need to start pushing for strong reform of the United States Supreme Court. It is irrevocably broken at this point because we have allowed partisanship to take the place of what the court is supposed to do, which is making sure that all Americans have equal access to the American dream. We don't have that in our Supreme Court anymore. And Congress has got to do something to correct that. And it can. It has the power to do that, and it's got to be committed to doing that. And then I think we got to start building locally. Like I said, we have got to start taking over these school boards, taking over these county commissions, taking over land and soil positions, clerks of courts. We've got to be in these communities where we have the majority. We have got to start exercising our political power up close. And if we exercise our political power at home, up close, in smaller communities where it's a lot easier to control the electoral map, then we can protect our communities from some of the really ugly shit that's going to come from the top down. That's what I think we need to be doing.
And so I don't disagree with that plan. I think where I get stuck is when we think about the midterms or even during the presidential cycle, where we're still electing in other federal seats as well, in Congress, Senate, what have you, is that there seems to be a large number of calcium deficient candidates. These backbones that you talk about, like the vertebrae are very weak. And
They
so
are,
then it
girl.
goes back to like, yeah, like it just is, it's like there's a lot of osteoporosis happening or something. Like I just don't understand. And so when I think about us telling people to vote, which obviously I am an advocate for voting, but when
Mhm.
we end up with these mealy mouth candidates who waffle along and don't pick a side and won't say black enough, won't
Mhm.
really drill down into like what needs to happen in a way that shows me that they're going to continuously stand for something that actually matters to me and my community. And it's just like, so who am I voting for? And I
Mhm.
just keep coming back to who am I voting for? And as somebody who has been a Democrat for a very long time, but also is an independent, also, is a nonpartisan voter for the most part. Like that's how I like to define myself at this point, because I vote based off of who's going to ride for me and my community, not necessarily thinking about political party. It's just that that political party, for the most part, has been Democrats. But also, here we are now coming up upon this midterm, and I'm really not seeing a change in voice, a change in tone and tenor around how they are either talking to the community or helping out candidates or hearing the candidates speak in a way like the tide has changed a long time ago, and it feels as though they're still singing the same song, and they're still driving the same old jalopy from 30 years ago and haven't moved into today's time, whatever that looks like. And I don't know what to do with the folks that I'm seeing in a lot of these races come out, even in places where it's not my race. I'm not voting. I don't live in that state, but it still matters because it matters who's elected in Michigan, just for me, just as much as it matters as Nevada or California or elsewhere, because those laws and those policies ripple effect. Same way with Louisiana, those decisions and those policies ripple effect outward into other places. And once one legislature hears that it worked and it passed over here, then here they come trying to double down and make it even worse over here. And so I'm really stuck in this spot of who are we voting for?
And I think
how do we get out of this two-party system in the first place? We don't even have enough choice.
And again, I think that's part of what that Black think tank that we need to put together. That's what those folks need to be coming up with. Right now, the reality is we stuck with who the hell we got at this moment, right? So we are needing to make the lesser of the evil decisions, right? And I get that people don't want to do that, but here's what we know for sure. When you decide that you are just going to opt out, right? You make shit worse, right? Because that's where we are right now, right? We are at worst. This is what it looks like when you're just like, you take your ball and go home. We don't have political ground to cede, right? We need every freaking tool that we have in our toolboxes. And right now, that might mean that we end up voting for folks who we are not on all fours with, right? And that has to be okay because it is for the greater good. But then we also have to understand that voting is just one step in your civic duty and responsibility. We also have a responsibility to call these folks out once they get into office and hold them responsible and hold them accountable to what is best and good for the people. And again, this goes back to that us Black folks and all of us changing our paradigm around voting. Voting is not an act. Voting is it is a piece of a process, right? But it is not the end all be all, right? We got to normalize going into the people's houses. That means going into Congress, going into our state houses and demanding shit. If the people that we elected are not doing what they said they were going to do, or even if they are doing what they said they was going to do, but it is not in my best interest, we got to call them out on that stuff. And we got to go to their faces and call them out. And I don't care if they Black, yellow, Puerto Rican, Mexican, I don't care what they are. what they look like. If you ain't doing right by my people, you are my enemy. I'm coming for your neck, right? So much work to do, so much decolonizing to do, but I am hopeful that we can do it and that we will do it and that we have everything that we need to survive. We just have to have the imagination and the courage to determine and decide that we are no longer going to play these games by the rules of the slave masters. And we're going to create some new rules. We're going to play some guerrilla warfare and we're going to get some shit done.
I think that's where we end. I think that was a whole mic drop.
Okay.
I think that is a perfect spot in which to say, we coming for your necks and we gonna stay on your neck.
We gonna stay there.
Because it's about our livelihood and our legacy.
Because we don't have no damn choice. Survival requires that I stand on your neck the way you've been standing on mine. So that's what we're gonna have to do.
And I tell folks, I didn't eat organic food and do prenatal exercises and birth children without an epidural to leave them in a world, to help them grow up and leave them in a world where they have no basic rights.
Yep. Nope. I didn't do that. And we got to get mad about it. We got to get mad about it.
Stay mad.
And stay damn mad. It's always a pleasure, my love.
I appreciate you so much.
I
really do.
You. I appreciate you.
There's the conversation, but there is just the fact that I think I need sometimes those reminders too.
We all do.
As I'm doing this work and get caught in the minutia.
Mm-hmm. We all do.
Little things, the administrative pieces of it. Because sometimes this whole grassroots on the ground out talking to people, I don't get to do it as much as I did in the beginning. Because when you put executive director on your title or what have you, then your day-to-day duties change in a lot of ways.
Radically. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it feels like I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
It feels like I'm just answering emails and telling people what I want to do and writing about what I want to do.
Exactly what you mean.
But like, what am I doing besides telling them what I want to do?
What am I actually doing? But here's the thing, Erika, for real. This right here, these conversations, this is it, right? This is exactly what we've been talking about. This, giving ourselves permission and space to radically strategize long term. Right? That's what we're doing right now. And it feels like sometimes, a lot of times, it feels like, but there are so many pressing things that I should be doing, right? There are so many immediate needs that have to be met. And we have to remember that long-term planning, radical, imaginative thinking is also an emergency, right? It is also something that we have got to do right now. It is also pressing. It is not something that we can continue to kick down the road. Because if we do, we end up where we are right now again and again and again. We got to know where we're going. We got to know. And I think that we have been so busy fighting to hold on to what we have not had the opportunity to dream and imagine and strategize how we get what we want. That's the part that's missing. And that part, the failure to do that part, is why we are in such a critical position right now. So I would argue that there is nothing more pressing than this kind of radical, strategic imagining and planning for how we hold on to our wins today. All right, girl, I'm gonna stop right there.
This has been This has been Sticky Note Conversations. And I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Dawn will be back because there's so much more. There's so much more. She's just going to be my reoccurring guest. So, y'all, I'll see y'all next week.
Thanks for listening to Sticky Note Conversations with Erika Washington. Hosted and executively produced by Erika Washington. With editing by Black Gypsy LLC. Special thanks to KUNV 91.5 in Las Vegas. This show is powered by Make It Work Nevada, a project of Tides Advocacy.